Chapter 1. On a rainy night, in the northern corner of the Sky Harmony Palace of the Vermilion Bird Dynasty. Huff! Huff! There were heavy breathing sounds, accompanied by the chaotic ups and downs of hurried footsteps. From the source of the sound, a young girl dressed in disheveled clothes frantically rushed forward. Behind her was clearly a fat man who looked even more lecherous than Zhu Baji one. He was chasing after the girl, shouting, "Miss Ye, you asterisk king, stop right there." It looked like this fat man was about to catch up with the girl. This caused Ye Qianli, whose body had already reached its limit, to feel despair. No, no! At this moment, not only was her entire body uncomfortable, but she was also completely unable to activate the profound energy within it. Her consciousness was growing increasingly blurry as well, but she couldn't stop. She must not stop. Someone wanted to tarnish her reputation as the future crown princess consort. Someone wanted to ruin her goddess body. Someone wanted to harm her. She couldn't stop. She had to escape this place. Hang in there for a while longer. Younger cousin will be back soon. Hang in there for a while longer. Ye Qianli tried her best to encourage herself. She bit the tip of her tongue again, so that the pain would allow her to maintain her consciousness. As a result, her footsteps stabilized and her speed finally increased. However, even until Ye Qianli ran to the edge of the northern corner of the Imperial Palace and reached the precipitous edge along the end of the Sky Harmony Palace's terrain, no one came to save her. Ha ha ha! Miss Ye, you are at the end of your rope. Miss Ye, the drug has already dispersed throughout your body. You won't be able to run. Neither do you have anywhere to run to. How dare you kick me? I'll kill you! Ye Qianli, whose mind was already in a state of chaos, could only hear arrogant shouts. However, she was unwilling to accept this. She was unwilling to let her goddess body be destroyed just like this. No. Ye Qianli suddenly let out a sharp scream and threw herself off the edge. She jumped down the precipice in front of her and into the bottomless abyss. She would rather die than submit. She would rather shatter into pieces than yield. The cold patter of rain drizzled onto Ye Qianli's face, but she felt extremely uncomfortable all over her body. It was as if thousands of huge ants were crawling all over her body and biting her bit by bit. She opened her eyes abruptly. That was a pair of glass-like eyes that sparkled like gemstones. They were very beautiful, and yet very cold. What the H*L? Ye Qianli frowned as she looked up at the pitch-black sky. She realized that she was actually hanging from a tree on a cliff. However, shouldn't she be on the plain? She was still somewhat dazed when an intense pain surged in her head. She hissed in pain, but she could feel memories that did not seem to belong to her, flooding into her mind. After a while, in the memories she had obtained, she saw a young girl who was forced to jump off a cliff. This was because someone wanted to destroy her, to destroy the young girl's goddess body. In other words, her current body. Her soul seemed to have transmigrated. Ye Qianli was known as the legendary doctor of the century, as in the King of Hell wants people to die at midnight, but God you will bring people back to life. She fought the King of Hell with a silver needle in one hand, battled the Grim Reapers, and had never lost a single fight. Her soul had transmigrated. She transmigrated into the body of a victimized young girl. What a coincidence. They were both called Ye Qianli. As for the original Ye Qianli, she was the eldest young lady of the Vermilion Bird Dynasty's noble clan in the Northern Territory, the Ye clan. She was born with a goddess body that belonged to the most perfect type of cultivation physique. She had been chosen as the future queen of the Vermilion Bird Dynasty ever since she was young. It was a pity that this noble lady of the dynasty had been clearly schemed against by someone. This was because before the age of 18, someone with the body of a goddess absolutely must not lose her virginity. Otherwise, she would become a useless person whose meridians would be completely destroyed. However, the original Ye Qianli was drugged with a high concentration of drugs that would render her unconscious. However, Wait, where am I supposed to find the antidote on this cliff? Ye Qianli realized that this was a very serious problem. Although she was indeed a genius doctor, the high-tech equipment, needles and medicine that she usually used did not transmigrate with her. What could she do? Luckily, her instincts led Ye Qianli to quickly think of something. In my memory, there's an ice spring in the western palace of the Sky Harmony Palace. Maybe it can save my life. I have to go there, Ye Qianli thought to herself. She did not want to die just like this. Furthermore, if she died, there would be nothing left. Wouldn't that be a waste of her chance to live again? How could she do that? Click. Ye Qianli's gaze was calm as she thought about her next course of action. She reached out and corrected her left leg bone, which had been dislocated. Crack, crack. The kneecaps have been successfully connected. The ribs are temporarily broken but won't injure the internal organs. After a simple and brutal treatment of her severely injured body, Ye Qianli carefully moved from the tree branch to the side of the cliff. Based on her initial assessment of this body, she estimated that she would still be able to stay awake for another 20 minutes. Besides, 20 minutes was also the maximum time limit for the poison in her body to take effect completely. Within 20 minutes, not only did she have to climb up this cliff, but she also had to go from the northern palace to the western palace of the imperial palace and find that ice spring. Otherwise, she would definitely die without a doubt. Who? Ye Qianli let out a long breath before using the sharp point of a tree branch, which she had snapped off, to ruthlessly pierce several acupuncture points on her own body. The potential of the human body was instantly stimulated by Ye Qianli. Then on the cliff, a white shadow, cutting a sorry figure, immediately climbed upwards step by step at an unimaginable speed. It didn't look like someone who had been injured and even poisoned at all. Ye Qianli's gaze remained calm. She concentrated on calculating her time and making every second count in her climb. Finally, she climbed to the top of the cliff and entered the western palace from the northern palace. The strange thing was that there were no guards patrolling the Sky Harmony Palace tonight, no matter whether it was the northern palace or western palace. 2 minutes! The last 2 minutes! Ye Qianli, whose footsteps were already unsteady, barged into the ice spring hole. However, her consciousness was hazy, so she did not see the so-called ice spring. She only saw a man who was wrapped in misty clouds like a god. Eh! The knockout poison in Ye Qianli's body was like a bomb that had been lit. Every cell in her body was screaming that this person could cure the poison. It was strange. Plop! Ye Qianli was almost out of control. She threw herself over towards him. Even though the situation seemed to be out of control, she still remembered clearly that her divine body could not be destroyed. Hence, almost instantly, Ye Qianli used her intuition to come up with a completely new treatment plan for herself. She peeled off the man's clothes and took his hairpin from his head. She used it as a silver needle and stabbed at a few acupuncture points on his body. This was not the end. Ye Qianli was so ruthless with her actions. She punctured the man's 10 fingers roughly and used her unique silver needle technique to force his blood essence out. Essence. It was innately hidden in the kidney. Blood. It was acquired in the spleen postnatal. The combination of blood essence was the yin energy of a man. It was also a type of natural antidote to the poison in her body. However, it had to be combined with her silver needle technique to neutralize the poison in her blood. Hence, the blood essence that was taken from a certain man's body was absorbed by Ye Qianli. She cut open the vein on her wrist by herself and drew the blood essence into her body through the needle. Afterward, there was no afterward. At the moment of life and death, the oh-so-nimble Ye Qianli had already sucked 10 drops of a certain man's blood essence. Chapter 2. Phew. After Ye Qianli finished what she had to do, she felt like she came back to life and sighed. Her voice was like a lazy cat that had just eaten its fill, containing an indescribable charm and mellowness. She sat up and was about to put on her clothes, but when she got a clear view of the man whom she had finished off, her movements froze for a moment because of that pair of eyes on him. Silver eyes. A pair of eyes as bright as the moon shone in his silver eyes. However, it did not seem strange or sinister. Instead, it gave off an elegant and distant charm. Apart from this pair of striking silver eyes, his facial features were also extremely outstanding, like they were exquisitely carved from fine jade of the highest quality. Just looking at him made one feel cool and comfortable. His inky black eyebrows were like dyed paintings, his nose bridge was high and straight, and his lips were plump and sexy. Especially after being nibbled on by her, they seemed even more beautiful and alluring, simply making one's heart pound by looking. Just based on looks alone, he was undoubtedly a handsome man. Look at his figure, too. Oh my, how embarrassing. Broad shoulders, narrow waist, lean and sexy. However, just as Ye Qianli's eyes were about to strip him naked and give him another visual assault, this man, who had always been at her mercy, moved. He moved. Although his movements were weak, he still managed to move. He raised his hand and gathered the clothes that had been pulled off of him, covering up everything lovely in sight. His eyes were also clear and bright, exuding a dark, killing intent. The darkness in his brightly lit silver eyes became more and more terrifying. He was like an awakening god, one ruling over everything, and was planning to kill this woman who had blasphemed against his elegance and honor with one slap. Danger, super dangerous. Ye Qianli narrowed her eyes lightly and quickly deduced that she had not only sinned against a peerlessly beautiful man, but also a super terrifying man. Furthermore, Ye Qianli could clearly feel that a terrifying power was rising in this man's body. This completely changed the image of him being weak and easy to ravage. Without a doubt, she would definitely die if she waited until he fully recovered. Whoosh! As soon as Ye Qianli realized the danger, her speed increased. It was as if her potential had been stimulated once again. She wrapped up her tattered clothes and disappeared in an instant, like a little leopard. After a while, Ye Qianli, who was running away, could clearly feel a terrifying and violent killing intent erupting from far behind. Even without thinking, she could tell that it was definitely released from that man. Hiss! Ye Qianli's entire body shivered as she secretly praised herself for running fast. Otherwise, she would probably have been chopped into pieces by now. However, thinking about the brutish act that she had done to a certain handsome man, she could understand his anger too. However, I was clearly the one at a disadvantage while he was the one who took advantage of a young maiden like me, okay? Who is he trying to scare with such a heavy murderous aura? Ye Qianli muttered unhurriedly, but her speed of escape did not decrease at all. Moreover, her target destination was quite clear. Through her body's memories, Ye Qianli clearly remembered that she originally lived in the southern palace of the Clear Wind Palace. However, she was brought to the northern palace by her younger female cousin. That younger female cousin said that she wanted to see an exotic flower. In the end, they had not seen the exotic flower, but Ye Qianli herself became a poisoned flower and was almost defiled by a fat pig. Previously, she did not have the time to think about these things. After all, survival was the main issue at that time. However, now that she thought about it carefully, how had she been poisoned? Why was there no one who could save her wherever she went? This was very thought-provoking. Younger cousin? Ye Qianli's gaze turned cold. She had a rough idea of what had happened within her heart. She was certain that, before her dear cousin and she left the southern palace of the Clearwind Palace, the tea that her cousin had given her contained a high concentration of aphrodisiac. The smell is indeed very faint. If I hadn't recalled my memories thoroughly, I'm afraid I wouldn't have been able to detect it. Ye Qianli smiled in her heart. As she had been in contact with drugs for many years, she had an extremely terrifying ability to identify all kinds of medicinal smells. Actually, Even if she did not have this ability of identification, upon careful consideration, the original Ye Qianli would be able to sense that all the oddities in this matter were closely related to this female cousin. Perhaps it was because the person involved in the matter was confused, or perhaps it was because she was unwilling to believe it. So even till her death, the original Ye Qianli was still hoping that her dear younger cousin would return and save her. While she was thinking, Ye Qianli had already returned to the southern palace. At this moment, the southern palace was in an uproar. Aunt! Aunt, there is trouble. Elder sister is missing. Elder sister is missing. Amidst the chaos, there was an extremely sweet and delicate female voice. It was spreading news of Ye Qianli's disappearance in a low but clear manner, so that everyone knew about it. Because of her yelling, the strong fighters in charge of patrolling the southern palace quickly surrounded the entire area. Everyone in the southern palace was forbidden from walking freely. This made it difficult for Ye Qianli, who had returned quietly, to sneak back into the ladies' chamber of the Clear-Wind Palace. After creating such a huge commotion, even if Ye Qianli was found, it would be impossible to hide the news of her losing her virginity. This was probably the ultimate motive of the female cousin who had made her move, ruining Ye Qianli's innocence, destroying her reputation, turning her from the most respected young lady in the dynasty to the most despised piece of trash in the dust. Her intentions were truly sinister. Hiding in the darkness, Ye Qianli's cold gaze swept across the girl in a pink dress, who was running and screaming in a panic, as though she was flustered from losing her pillar of support. She was Ye Qianli's younger cousin, Su Lianhua. Su Lianhua and Ye Qianli were both 16 years old. The difference was that Ye Qianli was born with the goddess body and was already able to condense profound energy and become a mystic cultivator. Moreover, because of this, she was going to be betrothed to the crown prince of the Vermilion Bird dynasty. 2 years later, when Ye Qianli turned 18, she would get married to the crown prince. She would become the noble crown princess consort and the future queen of the empire with a stable position. As for Su Lianhua, amongst the noble ladies in the Vermilion Bird dynasty, her talent was only second to Ye Qianli. She was a peak-level 9 mystic disciple and the second most talented girl in the dynasty. So the motive is to get rid of me, the number 1, and replace that position with you? Ye Qianli looked at Su Lianhua indifferently. While she was making guesses in her heart, her gaze was gradually attracted by a middle-aged couple with poised bearings. Hua Er, what's wrong with you? Why are you crying like this? Come over quickly and let Aunt take a look. The woman, who was part of the middle-aged couple, saw that Su Lianhua was weeping horribly and went up to comfort her with a pained expression. In her memory, this middle-aged beauty was actually Ye Qianli's mother, Su Qin. However, she had always been very cold to Ye Qianli, so cold that it seemed like Ye Qianli was the child of a mistress and not her biological daughter. So the Northern Palace patrol was gone because Mother also interfered? As Ye Qianli watched the scene unfold to this point, her clear eyes became even colder. Chapter 3. Who's there? At this moment, a dignified male voice shouted towards Ye Qianli's hiding place. Standing in the darkness, Ye Qianli looked up and met with the eyes of the person who had spoken. Those were a pair of phoenix eyes filled with pride. Even though time had left wrinkles at the corners of his eyes, it did not diminish the pride in his bones. He was the son of the Vermilion Bird dynasty's Northern Territory king, Ye Fengtian, Ye Qianli's biological father, and a man who controlled an army of millions in the Northern Territory. Ye Fengtian's cultivation level was Mystic King, and he was one of the top cultivators in the Vermilion Bird dynasty. With his divine sense, being able to detect Ye Qianli was an extremely normal thing. Father. Ye Qianli walked out of the darkness and bowed to her imposing father. Whoosh! However, because of Ye Qianli's appearance, the crowd erupted into an incredulous uproar. Who is this dirty person? How dare she call the prince father? That's not the point. The voice sounds like eldest young lady. F***seek? No way. Why is eldest young lady in such a sorry state? How did she... No one was able to believe that. The person in front of them was dressed in shabby clothes, covered with filth from head to toe, had messy hair, and a face filled with blood and dirt. She looked even worse than a beggar on the street. How could she be the noble and beautiful young lady Ye in their memories? But when Ye Qianli walked out of the shadows step by step, and as her steady and upright posture slowly appeared in front of everyone's eyes, the noble aura revealed under her dirty appearance made everyone present shut up. This was the eldest young lady. Even though she was covered in filth, the noble aura of a goddess could not be concealed. When Ye Fengtian saw his dirty daughter, he immediately frowned in displeasure, and his tone became very stern. What happened? At the same time, Su Qin reprimanded her even more severely. You're a dignified eldest daughter of the family, a lady who's about to get engaged to the crown prince. How did you get yourself into this state? How improper. What about the etiquette, supposed dignity and ceremonial manners that you've learned? Have you forgotten them all? Although she was reprimanded, Ye Qianli still looked at her parents calmly. She did not stop walking towards them because of their cold feelings. Perhaps the Ye Qianli of the past would still be hurt by their cold treatment after suffering a huge grievance, but the Ye Qianli now would not. Seeing Ye Qianli like this, Su Qin's beautiful brows furrowed tightly. A hint of viciousness emerged from the bottom of her eyes. She opened her mouth as if she wanted to continue reprimanding her. However, at this moment, Su Lianhua hugged Su Qin's arm and sobbed softly. Aunt, please stop scolding elder sister. Hurry up and see what's wrong with her. Then Su Lianhua pounced on Ye Qianli and hugged her tightly. Eldest sister, what happened to you? How did you end up like this? Your clothes are all torn. Boo-hoo, did someone bully you? Elder sister, quickly tell uncle. He will definitely kill that bastard. Hearing that, everyone at the scene gasped in shock. Su Qin's and Ye Fengtian's expressions changed at the same time. It should be obvious that Ye Qianli's image could easily make people think negatively in the first place. Now, accompanied by Su Lianhua's caring words, it naturally reinforced their negative thoughts. Furthermore, many of the guards present were also cultivators. They were shocked to discover that there were no traces of profound energy fluctuations coming from this young lady Ye. Her cultivation? Was her cultivation gone? If that was the case, then had she really been sullied? Her goddess body was damaged? This... Heavens! The gods who realized this point all turned pale. If this was true, then they, who didn't protect eldest young lady Ye well, would be severely punished, spanning 3 generations of their clans. The eldest daughter of the Yi clan was definitely going to become the crown princess consort of the dynasty. In addition to her extremely noble status, she was the only descendant of the Yi clan in the Northern Territory, the beloved daughter of the Northern Territory king's heir. Oh God. At the thought of this, the gods all broke out in a cold sweat. At the same time, the sky was just as cold as the falling rain. What did younger sister Hua say? However, Ye Qianli's puzzled voice rang out clearly at this moment. Aren't we in the same boat? You told me to eat the Tianyu Night Queen flower. You said that, although eating it will cause me temporary pain, my cultivation base will increase by 30% after a day. I was rolling around on the floor in pain after eating it. I didn't see you after I woke up. How could you come back without waiting for me to wake up? Ye Qianli sounded puzzled, and she looked at Su Lianhua in utmost confusion. Tianyu Night Queen flower? When the entire crowd heard that, they all exclaimed in unison. The Tianyu Night Queen was a divine flower of the Vermilion Bird dynasty. It was extremely poisonous, and ordinary people would die instantly if they consumed it. However, it was rumored that strong cultivators could control the poison of the flower and could even refine it to strengthen their cultivation. It was one of the rare treasures in the Sky Harmony Palace. "Didn't you eat it?" Ye Qianli lightly blinked her glass-like eyes and asked Su Lianhua with an innocent gaze. Hence, everyone's gazes were all fixed on Su Lianhua. "Young lady actually let eldest young lady consume Tianyu Night Queen? Why would she do that? Does she not know?" Everyone started discussing in disbelief. "All of you, shut up! Lear, what nonsense are you talking about?" Su Qin's voice reprimanded sternly. As the princess consort of the Northern Territory King's heir, Su Qin's words were naturally very imposing. After being shouted at by her, everyone was silent like cicadas in the winter and did not dare to make any other comments. "I'm not spouting nonsense. Younger sister Hua invited me to watch the Tianyu Night Queen flower tonight from 7 to 9. Oh, right. Before I left, younger sister Hua even gave me a cup of tea to drink. I was too anxious at that time and even scalded my mouth after drinking it. Younger sister Hua even used her handkerchief to wipe my mouth. The servants were also present at that time. I didn't forget that." After Ye Qianli finished speaking solemnly, a pink handkerchief had already appeared in her hand, and she shook it. Su Lianhua's face instantly turned deathly pale because what Ye Qianli said was the truth. Su Lianhua had yet to take care of the handkerchief. Ye Qianli smiled as she admired the change in Su Lianhua's expression. Her clear, shimmering eyes conveyed a message. "Younger cousin, your time of death is here." What she, Ye Qianli, was best at, besides saving lives, was also killing without spilling blood. However, at the same time, "His Highness the Crown Prince has arrived." Outside the southern palace, a loud and clear voice suddenly sounded. Ye Qianli's eyelids twitched. Her sensitive nerves allowed her to faintly sense a wave of killing intent rushing towards her. As a result, her gaze landed on the southern palace's main entrance. Then she saw a familiar face, one she had only seen once before, actually. It was the face of that peerless beauty. It was him? Chapter 4. At the same time, this man's dark eyes honed in on Ye Qianli accurately. In that instant, Ye Qianli felt as if she was watching erupting sunspots. There was a super terrifying magnetic field that was about to suck in her heart and soul. Dong dong. Ye Qianli could clearly hear her own heart racing from the fright that she had given herself. She even found it somewhat difficult to breathe. She felt that something was extremely wrong. The look in this man's eyes was so scary. She felt that it was a bit hard to withstand his gaze. "His Highness, the Crown Prince, may you live for 1,000 years. Fortunately, at that moment, everyone in the southern palace began to kowtow in unison. Ye Qianli lowered her eyes and imitated the crowd without leaving a trace. She made a proper bow. "Prince? Crown Prince? Must she be so accurate? The man she slept with happened to be the man who was going to be engaged to her, who also happened to be the crown prince of the dynasty. This piece of asterisk T luck. His Highness the Crown Prince. His Highness the Crown Prince actually came here? Am I dreaming? My God. In the last 10,000 years of our dynasty, His Highness is the only master deity who has received the recognition of the Vermilion Bird Temple. Deity. He is a deity. I can't take it anymore. I'm having trouble breathing. Shut up, everyone! His Highness is here! Swish. At this moment, everyone in the hall was extremely excited because of his arrival. But when this crown prince stepped into the southern palace's entrance, the entire hall instantly fell silent. It was as if the discussions just now were all ghostly voices and did not exist at all. That's right. The Vermilion Bird Dynasty's crown prince, Rong Mo, was not only the crown prince, he was also the only person, in the last 10,000 years, to have opened the Vermilion Bird Temple and obtained the Vermilion Bird God's recognition. Possessing the rights of a master deity, he was the disciple of the Vermilion Bird. However, such a godlike figure was recklessly violated by Ye Qianli just now. Ye Qianli. Inwardly, She wanted to say that she seemed to have hit the jackpot. However, before Ye Qianli could secretly rejoice, she felt a certain deity's gaze that was completely intent on tearing her apart. It made her heart beat rapidly. Calm down, calm down. You have an alibi. You were with a SE*M younger cousin back then. Ye Qianli tried to brainwash herself over and over. She quickly thought of how she could deal with the situation once the other party made things difficult for her. Ye Qianli understood that, no matter what, she had to get rid of the suspicion of her sleeping with him. She definitely could not let him get hold of any evidence that it was her, or else she would definitely die immediately. Because of Rongmo's arrival, Ye Fengtian had no time to care about the original mess. He eagerly went up to welcome this deity-class crown prince. Taking advantage of this moment, Granny Nan, who was beside Su Qin and had obviously been instructed by Su Qin, was secretly bringing the dirty Ye Qianli away from the side. Ye Qianli was extremely willing and naturally cooperated with her. Just as she was about to be successfully brought into a side palace hall, Ye Qianli's heart was also in her throat. She took a step forward and was about to throw herself into the side hall. After all, although she had a million excuses to deal with the impending trouble, if she could go back and wipe out all traces first and make more preparations, that would be even more perfect. However, her imagination was beautiful, but reality was cruel. Just as Ye Qianli stepped into the side hall with one foot and was about to dodge inside, the moment before she escaped, "Stop right there!" A distant, clear, and cold voice froze everyone's movements, including Ye Fengtian's words of pleasantries. Of course, it also froze Ye Qianli, who wanted to run into the side chamber without any care. She did not dare to take another step at all because she could clearly sense that as long as she dared to move, the owner of that gaze fixed at the back of her head could let her get acquainted with the king of hell. "You, turn around." Rongmo said those words to the back of Ye Qianli's head in an indisputable tone. Ye Qianli. She wanted to pretend that she couldn't hear anything and run away with Granny Nan, but she knew that she couldn't. After all, if she ran away, wouldn't that be a definite show of guilt? Since she could not escape, Ye Qianli could only turn her head back without hesitation. She bravely and openly walked forward, bowed towards Rongmo solemnly, and then said, "Ye Qianli pays her respects to Your Highness the Crown Prince. May Your Highness live for 1,000 years." This bow of hers was neither humble nor arrogant. She was neither embarrassed by how filthy she was nor fearful of being caught. That calm and magnanimous attitude caused Rongmo's astute eyes to narrow slightly. Cough. At this moment, Ye Fengtian, who saw that things were not going well, managed to resist Rongmo's aura and coughed lightly. "We've made a fool of ourselves in front of the Crown Prince. My daughter has just met with an accident. Your Highness, please allow her to go and freshen up so that she doesn't sully your eyes. How about it?" Even though he was the heir of the Northern Territory, who controlled an army of 1,000,000 soldiers, Ye Fengtian did not dare to overstep his boundaries when facing the Crown Prince and his future son-in-law. "Oh? Where did Miss Ye go? What accident did she encounter?" Unexpectedly, Rongmo took the opportunity to stare at Ye Qianli as he asked. The killing intent in his ink-black eyes was about to devour and annihilate the person he was staring at. But, good question. The corners of Ye Qianli's lips curled up slightly, and she immediately replied in a dignified manner. "Reporting to Your Highness. I went to the Northern Palace earlier, and there was an incident of being poisoned by Tianyu Night Queen Flower." Ye Qianli's words caused everyone's gazes to fall onto Su Lianhua once more. No one had forgotten that Ye Qianli had said earlier that Su Lianhua was the one who had made her eat the Tianyu Night Queen Flower. At this moment, Su Lianhua was clearly looking at Rongmo in a daze. There was an obvious look of infatuation in her eyes. Now that everyone was suddenly paying attention to her, she panicked. That's right, younger sister Hua. Were you so frightened when you saw how much pain I was in that you didn't even dare to swallow the Tianyu Night Queen Flower anymore?" Were you also afraid of being punished by father, so you left me behind and came back in a panic? Ye Qianli acted as if she hadn't noticed Su Lianhua's panic, and she even revealed an expression of sudden realization as she held up one side of the handkerchief and asked seriously, "No, it's not like that. Su Lianhua wanted to defend herself, but no matter how eloquent she was, she did not dare to say anything since Ye Qianli had the evidence. As for Ye Qianli, she had already intimately stepped forward to hold Su Lianhua's hand. She said very gladly and naively, "Younger sister Hua, you're really quick-witted. That Qianyu Night Queen flower is really poisonous. Even with my physique, I couldn't take it. Thankfully, you didn't swallow it. Compared to the so-called top-notch cultivators, we're really too inferior. We can't compare at all. We can't handle the poison from that flower. However, younger sister Hua, when you saw that I was already poisoned, why didn't you get someone to come save me? How could you leave me behind? Do you know that I was almost poisoned to death? I almost couldn't see my parents or you anymore." As soon as these words were spoken... Chapter 5. Everyone fell silent. Then, many people revealed strange expressions as they stared at Su Lianhua doubtfully. It was as though they were looking at a suspect. Only Rong Mo did not look at Su Lianhua. To be exact, he had not looked at anyone else since he entered the hall. All of his attention was on Ye Qianli. Those who did not know better would think that he was interested in his fiancée. Those who knew better, like Ye Qianli herself, only wanted to turn around and dig his eyes out because she felt wholly uncomfortable under his gaze. She felt uncomfortable all over, as if she was being scrutinized from above. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, elder sister." At this moment, Su Lianhua, who had been rendered speechless by Ye Qianli's naive questioning, suddenly started to apologize with tears streaming down her face. Not only that, plop! Su Lianhua even knelt down in front of Ye Qianli in an instant and cried, "Elder sister, I've let you down. I was really frightened at that time. I didn't follow our agreement to ingest the Qianyu Night Queen flower. Then I ran back. I wanted to get uncle and aunt to save you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, elder sister. Luckily, you survived and came back. I'm sorry, elder sister." It had to be said that Su Lianhua's IQ was still very high. In a moment of desperation, she could still completely follow Ye Qianli's words and defend herself. As she came up with excuses, she even knelt down and hugged Ye Qianli's legs. I'm sorry. Su Lianhua was already in tears within moments. She even unconsciously tugged at the handkerchief in Ye Qianli's hand. She was probably trying to destroy the evidence. After all, she still did not know that her silly older cousin, who had been framed by her, already knew everything. However, "All right, Hua quickly get up. You didn't do anything wrong. It's Leah herself who's too ignorant. Why are both of you so foolish as to actually ingest the Qianyu Night Queen flower? Is that flower so easy to swallow? Do you think that cultivation is so easy to increase? Naive. Both of you, get up quickly and go freshen up. Young maidens should abstain from lack of manners the most. Fortunately, His Highness, the Crown Prince doesn't mind. Hurry up and leave." Before Ye Qianli could respond, Su Qian had already turned big problems into small ones, and small problems into none at all with her lectures as a mother. She gestured to Granny Nan to take them away quickly. "Yes, Aunt, Hua will leave now." When Su Lianhua heard that, she hurriedly stood up and held on to Ye Qianli tightly. Although she appeared obedient on the surface, she was actually using a lot of strength to drag Ye Qianli away. She was afraid. She was afraid that this silly cousin of hers would say something preposterous to ruin her again and cause her to lose her manners in front of the honorable Crown Prince again. But how could Ye Qianli possibly let her succeed? Under Su Lianhua's horrified gaze, she pulled the handkerchief out of the latter's hand. She raised her hand and said to Su Qian, "Mother, then, when younger sister Hua brought me a cup of tea with a high concentration of aphrodisiac, do you still think that she didn't do anything wrong? Mother, do you know what I just experienced? I was really almost raped by a dirty man. I jumped off a cliff because of that and came back with such a disheveled appearance. Someone wants to harm me. Someone wants to ruin me. As the daughter of the Northern Territory King's heir, I've been humiliated like this. Are you really going to ignore it and let me fend for myself? When Ye Qianli said those words, not only did Su Lianhua's face, the culprit, turn pale, but Su Qin's and Ye Fengtian's expressions also turned extremely ugly. Of course, the one with the ugliest expression was Rong Mo. The veins on his temples were even throbbing. This was a sign of his extreme anger. However, if the heavens hadn't taken pity on me and allowed me to be caught on a branch when I jumped off the cliff, I would have been dead by now. When I was on the cliff, if I hadn't suddenly remembered that grandfather had given me a pill that was said to be able to cure 100 poisons, I would have already died from poison by now. Mother, do you still think that younger sister Hua didn't do anything wrong? That I'm the one in the wrong? Because I was too stupid and didn't guard against others, so I deserve it? Plop. As Ye Qianli's interrogation stopped, Su Lianhua, who was supporting her, knelt down again. However, this time she did not kneel on her own accord. Instead, she was so frightened that her legs went soft, and she knelt down naturally. Su Lianhua wanted to defend herself. I used this handkerchief to wipe my mouth. I believe there are still remnants of tea on it. I can check with the imperial physician to see if there are any problems with the tea stains. Ye Qianli did not give Su Lianhua a chance to say anything else. After she finished speaking, she suddenly looked at Rong Mo, who had been staring at her, and knelt on one knee. Your Highness, I'm sorry. As the chosen crown princess consort, I, Ye Qianli, was unable to protect myself well, and caused the royal family of the dynasty to be deceived. I feel that I am not worthy to be the crown princess consort. Crown prince, please make a clear judgment. Rong Mo. Li, are you? At the same time, Ye Fengxian hurriedly wanted to speak up. He was not stupid. He naturally heard that Ye Qianli's words implied that she was not going to become the crown princess consort. How could this be? This was their Ye clan's glory. Pa. Before Ye Fengxian could finish speaking, Su Qin had already stepped forward to give Su Lianhua a slap. She questioned coldly, Do you know your mistake? Su Lianhua. She had become foolish from the strike. She felt that it was really over this time. Even her aunt who loved her the most had criticized her. What else could she do? How can you let your older sister drink the poisonous tea? Although you're not an apothecary, you're still a cultivator. How can you not tell what's right or wrong? Men, capture all the servants serving the eldest young lady in Clearwind Palace and find out who the culprit is. I want to see who dares to plot against the Ye clan of the Northern Territory with such a nasty scheme. Su Qin's harsh words seemed to be swift and decisive, but she had removed the suspicion on Su Lianhua at the first moment. This not only stunned Su Lianhua, even Ye Qianli did not expect that Su Qin, Ye Qianli's mother, would not protect her or comfort her at this time. Instead, she cleared her niece's name at the first minute. Crack. Ye Qianli could clearly hear that something in the depths of her heart had shattered. It was the original Ye Qianli's heart that had been shattered into pieces by this mother of hers. Granny Nan, bring Leah away first and then quickly invite the imperial physicians over. Leah, you too. Such a major incident happened, and you also didn't even make a sound when you came back. You even blamed it all on your cousin. And now you're accusing your mother, me? Forget it, forget it. On account of you being frightened, Mother won't bicker with you. In the future, I'll just teach you how to conduct yourself in the ways of the world. You can go leave with Granny Nan first. Su Qin, who had just cleared Su Lianhua's name, still couldn't give up criticizing Ye Qianli. She put on the facade of a strict mother, and Ye Qianli could not help but snort in laughter. You, what kind of attitude is this? You. Ye Qianli's reaction was obviously not liked by Su Qin. She immediately wanted to lecture her again. That's enough. Ye Fengtian, who had been interrupted time and time again, felt so embarrassed that he hurriedly cut off her words. Yes, that's enough. Rongmo suddenly stood up, and then... Chapter 6. He suddenly approached Ye Qianli. Although he did not walk very fast, everyone present, including Ye Fengtian, subconsciously did not dare to disturb him. The others became even more silent. Ye Qianli did not dare to utter another word either. She did not even dare to look up. She did not dare to make eye contact with this handsome man who had suddenly approached her, even if she felt that she was acting magnanimous. It was not because of anything else, but because with every step he took, there was an intense, chilling intent. It pressed down on her as if it wanted to freeze her to death. Even though she had been through hundreds of battles and had a strong mental fortitude, she almost fell to her knees and trembled under his icy cold aura, ultra-frosty and pressurizing like the South Pole. So cold. It was so cold that Ye Qianli almost could not breathe. However, this person had already stopped in his tracks. The cold and oppressive aura around him also retracted. Then, before she could react, her chin was held in place by two cold fingers, and she was forced to look up. The next moment, she met that pair of dark and magnetic eyes. Buzz. In that instant, Ye Qianli felt as if her soul had been sucked out because of this pair of eyes, and her mind almost couldn't think clearly. Cold sweat instantly broke out on Ye Qianli's dirty forehead. Her pair of clear eyes also instinctively turned cold because of this, concealing the special characteristics under her new appearance. At this moment, it was as if the complete truth was going to pour forth. Boom! However, at this critical juncture, she suddenly restrained her true colors that had nearly come out, leaving only fear and confusion. At the same time, Rongmo, who was leaning over and grabbing her chin like he was a sort of god, had a flash of suspicion in his eyes. Hence, he did not let go and continued examining his fiancée in front of him. Cough crown! When Ye Fengtian saw this, he was suddenly shocked into a realization that, even as a mystic king, he had actually been captivated by the aura of the crown prince. Inevitably, this made him feel ashamed and angry at the same time. In a bid to prove himself, he cleared his throat and opened his mouth. However, Rongmo suddenly closed in on Ye Qianli under the watchful eyes of the crowd. The latter felt an omnipresent cold aura that abruptly invaded her breath. There seemed to be a faint, clean, and icy scent lingering within it. It was very clear, very cold, and very clean. It was comforting to smell it. At least she liked this wisp of smell. It was as if she were completely wrapped in a clean, huge, and heavy snowfall. It calmed her. This caused her beautiful glass-like eyes to inadvertently reveal a satisfied and languid feeling of enjoyment. This kind of behavior from her instantly caused Rongmo, who was originally approaching her with a calm aura, to snort coldly all of a sudden. And then, before Ye Qianli could figure out what was going on, Rongmo had already thrown her jaw away. Yes, he had thrown it away as though he was throwing away something very much taboo. Then, it seems that Crown Prince Ye has some family matters to attend to. This Crown Prince didn't come at the right time. Farewell. Rongmo stood up straight and said indifferently. He didn't even give a glance to Ye Qianli or anyone else in the hall as he walked out of the main hall. Crown Prince! Ye Fengtian looked at him and instinctively wanted to stop him and explain. He did indeed make a move, but he had just taken a step forward when he was pulled aside by someone before he could reach Rongmo. Crown Prince Ye, aren't you going to send His Highness the Crown Prince off? The person holding on to Ye Fengtian was a court eunuch, the only one who could follow Rongmo around. He was the chief steward of the Crown Prince's residence, Yan Nanfei. Ye Fengtian's intuition told him that he had to explain. Judging from this Crown Prince's behavior, it was very likely that he was dissatisfied with his daughter and with this trip. How could he not explain properly? Hurry up! Yan Nanfei urged with a headache. Others might not know, but as someone observant, He was clearly aware that the crown prince he served was on the verge of exploding with anger. If not in consideration for the Ye clan's power and the legendary Northern Territory king who was guarding the Northern Territory, this willful crown prince of a young master might have messed around. Most importantly, he didn't know why exactly the esteemed crown prince was so angry. After all, the crown prince came to Southern Palace in a rage. He wasn't angry because of the mess here. It should be that this bunch of people from the Ye clan had gotten into the crossfire, that's all. The crown prince gave Ye Qianli some face this time, and didn't even lose his temper on the spot. However, what was wrong with this Prince Ye? He was already so old, but he wasn't the slightest bit observant. The crown prince had already let him off, but this guy still wanted to go up to him. Was he courting death? Kike. Even if he wanted to die, this wasn't the time. Couldn't he look for some time when Yan Nanfei wasn't around? Otherwise, the emperor and the law enforcement officers would definitely not look for trouble with the crown prince, but they would all look for trouble with him. Sob. It was not easy to be the crown prince's chief steward. Sob. I bid you a respectful farewell, Your Highness. And just as Yan Nanfei and Ye Qianli were engaged in a tug of war, Ye Qianli had already sent him off politely with a clear voice. This caused Yan Nanfei to almost end up with tears streaming down his face. He was extremely moved as he looked towards her. If he could give her a like, he would probably give her 100 likes. However, the moment Ye Qianli said her farewell, Rong Mo, who had already reached the entrance of the hall, suddenly stopped in his tracks. This made Yan Nanfei's heart almost jump out of his throat. I bid you a respectful farewell, Your Highness. Su Lianhua, on the other hand, was trying to flatter him at this moment. However, to Ye Qianli, it was definitely a godsend for sending him off, because the moment she said that, Su Qian immediately spoke up, and Ye Qianli had no choice but to follow suit. Thus, everyone in the hall respectfully sent Rong Mo off. This made Ye Qianli secretly heave a sigh of relief. Especially after Rong Mo strode out, her heart was even more at ease. This stunning young man's aura was really F***king strong. Indeed, one must be careful when sleeping with others. If she had known earlier, she would have forced herself to look for that fat pig. And that's it. Oh no. She still couldn't bring herself to do it. Just imagining it made her feel like puking. Therefore, even though her life was in danger, sleeping with a beautiful man was still more comfortable to her state of mind. The saying that lascivious activities could lead to bitter consequences was too true indeed. At the same time, Yan Nanfei was already taking small steps to catch up with his young master. He was in an exceptionally good mood, as he felt that he had escaped a calamity. Unfortunately, he was only happy for a short while. Tianyi, lock down the Southern Palace. Rong Mo, who had walked out of Clearwind Palace, gave an order. A team of iron-blooded guards immediately appeared like ghosts and spread out to seal all the exits of the Southern Palace. Yan Nanfei. What happened to not causing trouble? Yan Nanfei, take the Crown Prince's emblem and invite Elder Dr. Zhang to come and investigate. Find the true culprit plotting against the Ye clan's bloodline within 2 hours and report it to me immediately. Rong Mo ordered again. This, Crown Prince, didn't you say that this is... Yan Nanfei wanted to say that this was a family matter, and it wasn't appropriate for him to interfere. However, when Rong Mo glanced over, he immediately raised his head and puffed out his chest. Yes! What a joke. If the Emperor and the law enforcement officers were to interrogate him, it would only take a lot of brain power to explain his actions. If the Crown Prince was unhappy, the outcome would definitely be very exciting. Forget it. He could only offend the Ye clan. It was such a pity for that little young lady. She was so quick-witted and observant. To be interrogated like this without restraint, even if her innocence wasn't ruined, her reputation wouldn't be good anymore. Was the Crown Prince looking down on his fiancée and determined to ruin the engagement?